You know, in this business, there are comedians, there are comics, and once in a while, rarely, somebody...
Johnny Carson looked relaxed behind that Tonight Show desk, but 8 guests proved even the king of late night could lose his cool. At his peak, Carson drew more nightly viewers than the NFL's Monday Night Football, an audience that expected effortless charm, crisp jokes, and interviews that felt like witty living room chats. Most nights he delivered, yet certain celebrities triggered silent fury, bruised pride, or outright dread. Their visits sparked lifelong bans, off-camera shouting, doors slamming, walk-offs, and the rare instant when Carson, the man who could defuse any bomb with grin, felt trapped on his own show. Here are the 8 personalities who push him there, plus the moments that push his limits. Frank Sinatra traveled with bodyguards, a tailor, and sometimes detectives. NBC security logged his arrivals in block letters. One notorious walk-on occurred in 1976. Carson was mid-monologue, telling a peanut allergy joke, when Sinatra strolled out unannounced, arm around Johnny, soaking in a 40-second standing ovation. Carson said, "Do you need the whole show, Frank?" Sinatra just winked. Only till the band packs up. Behind the scenes, Sinatra's team asked for a cooler room temperature, a teleprompter to help him remember lyrics, and space for 12 friends on the side of the stage. Carson, who usually ran a strict show, was annoyed but agreed to it. When a junior producer mispronounced a bodyguard's name, the guard reportedly removed him from the hallway. Carson later told Confidants, "It's Frank's world. We just film in it." Yet Carson also feared losing audience goodwill by seeming petty. He introduced Sinatra with reverence, then carefully steered the interview to safe nostalgia, avoiding mob rumors, political feuds, and marriage scandals. Ratings soared, but stress showed. Assistants noticed he poured an extra scotch those evenings, muttering, "Chairman of the board, sure, but I still sign the network paychecks." Bob Hope was TV royalty. NBC executives called him Sponsor Gold. That royalty arrived in Burbank with luggage full of index cards. Hope staff mailed Tonight Show producers a thick packet days ahead. Scripted jokes, suggested question prompts, product mentions, even camera angles for cutaway shots. For Carson, whose magic came from riffing on surprise answers, it felt like getting sheet music in a jazz club. During taping, Hope rarely looked at Johnny. He scanned cue cards by the cameraman's lens, waiting for Carson to tee up the next punchline. Carson tried ad-libbing once, tossing an unexpected follow-up. Hope blinked, shuffled cards, then delivered the pre-written gag anyway, ignoring the new direction. Laughter sounded polite, but producers saw Carson's knuckles whiten around his pencil. Matters worsened each time Hope peddled another NBC special. Instead of anecdotes, he plugged air dates and sponsor tie-ins. One 1978 appearance included 3 mentions of Texaco in 7 minutes. Carson joked, "Texaco gets more airtime than I do," but the quip only underscored his frustration. Crew members later recalled Carson muttering backstage, "I'm the warm-up act for a subsidy." Hope's stardom forced rebooking despite flat segments. Ratings data proved older viewers stayed tuned, yet network memos show Carson lobbying for fewer Hope visits, suggesting fresher comedians instead. NBC indulged him briefly until an executive reminded everyone that Hope's specials earned millions in ad revenue. Carson capitulated but instituted a new buffer tactic. If Hope appeared, pair him with a high-energy second guest or a musical finale to restore spontaneity. Even so, staff noted the temperature in Carson's dressing room dropped 10 degrees the moment Hope walked into the building. When Joan Rivers first sat opposite Johnny Carson in 1965, she said, "It's so exciting to be here. My mother finally stopped crying." Carson liked her style. For the next 20 years, he brought her on 90 times and even made her his main guest host, something he'd never done for anyone else. Behind the curtain, Rivers sent him handwritten thank yous, even birthday cake spelling boss and frosting. But Rivers possessed ambitions bigger than guest hosting. By 1986, she'd filled in 190 nights, building her own late-night following. Fox executives, eager to launch a rival network, dangled a staggering contract and full creative control, things NBC avoided promising. Rivers accepted, then hesitated. Should she call Johnny? Advisors warned her NBC might yank the offer if word leaked. She gambled, kept silent, and trusted a news embargo. That broke anyway. Carson heard the deal on the 6 p.m. NBC feed. To him, mentorship demanded loyalty and a personal phone call before he learned it in headlines. Rivers frantically dialed his direct line that evening. Technicians heard Carson say, "I don't want to talk to her," and hung up. The next morning, the Tonight Show booking sheet carried a handwritten note. Joan Rivers permanently blacklisted. Rivers' new show debuted Curiosity, then collapsed under network misfires and affiliate dropouts. In interviews, she cried, recounting the call that never happened. Carson never softened. Even after Rivers' husband's suicide and her career freefall, Jay Leno honored the band through his 22-year tenure. When Jimmy Fallon finally invited Rivers in 2014, crew members felt a ghost lift. Yet veteran Tonight Show writers still ranked the rift as Carson's deepest wound. A mentor convinced a student sold him out for a bigger microphone. Wayne Newton became another sore point. For months, Carson's monologue poked at him. Carson once said, "Las Vegas is installing brighter stage lights. Wayne Newton's hair needed photosynthesis." Audiences roared, but Newton didn't. Vegas sources whispered that the singer, who had just invested millions buying the Atlanta hotel, disliked any dents in his polished brand. Newton flew to Burbank unannounced on a taping day in 1980. Security cameras captured him striding down the hallway, silk shirt open, fists clenched. He barged into Carson's office, where the host reviewed cue cards. According to stage manager Fred DeCordova, Newton slammed the door, leaned over Carson's desk, and stated quietly, "You ever call me a joke again, I'll show you the punchline." Carson, unaccustomed to physical confrontation, nodded silently. Newton walked out. Crew members say Carson stayed motionless a full minute before exhaling. Well, damn. That night, the script cut all Newton jokes. Carson never admitted fear on air, but insiders observed a shift. Monologue barbs turned towards safer targets: politicians, airlines, the weather. Newton returned as a musical guest only with contractual assurances. No jokes before or after, no mention of prior tension. The once playful host now stepped gingerly around the crooner's high notes. Proof that a single hallway showdown could silence late-night's sharpest tongue. Fred Rogers on The Tonight Show seemed like a surefire heartwarmer. Pair the gentlest man on daytime TV with late night's favorite host. Even the booking memos sounded cozy. 5-minute chat, light demo of neighborhood puppets, ideal break from celebrity plug segments. But from the moment Rogers walked through the curtain, the tempo gap became obvious. He paused center stage, gave the crowd a small wave, and said, "Thank you very much, friends. I'm very glad to be here." The applause machine kept whirring, because no one on the floor crew could tell if he'd finished his greeting. Carson led with this line, "Fred, I wore my sneakers in your honor," lifting a shiny loafer to reveal a gagged pair of bright white canvas shoes he'd slipped on seconds earlier. Roger smiled, folded his hands, and replied, "That's very thoughtful, Johnny. Sneakers can help us feel ready to play." The audience laughed politely, expecting a tag from Johnny. None came. Rogers thought his sentence complete. Dead air swallowed the punchline, and the booth frantically widened the camera shot to capture both men while Carson regrouped. Johnny tried another angle. "Kids, letters gone wrong, maybe. A craziest fan mail anecdote?" Rogers countered with a careful story about a 7-year-old who feared bathtub drains and how imagination can turn fear into curiosity. He spoke in patient, measured phrases, leaving 2-second rest between thoughts. Perfect pacing for preschoolers and eternity for 11:45 p.m. television. In control room, Associate Director Bobby Quinn tapped a stopwatch. Every planned punchline slid 30 seconds further down the rundown. Cue card handlers started crossing off jokes because the beats no longer fit. Carson understood the unspoken rule. You don't roast Mr. Rogers. Making him the butt of a joke risked looking cruel. So Johnny stayed respectful, nodding through what eventually became a 5-minute reflection on the power of make-believe. Viewers at home saw warmth. Stagehands saw sweat forming under Carson's collar. When the band finally played the commercial sting, the host exhaled hard enough to fog the desk glass. Post-show autopsy was brutal. A minute-by-minute Nielsen check showed a 3-point dip during Rogers' answers. And the laughter count, compiled by production interns with hand clickers, logged 22 laughs. A novelty animal segment the night before had hit 60. But then came the mailbags, hundreds of handwritten notes praising Rogers' grace, many from parents who rarely stayed up but did that night because their kids begged to watch. We gained goodwill, producer Fred DeCorv admitted, just not momentum. Adjustments followed. Rogers' future invitations were slotted into December broadcasts when audiences tolerated sentimentality. Writers shaved 2 jokes off Carson's monologue to free extra cushion time. Talent coordinators asked Rogers to bring a tangible prop, a small trolley, a puppet, so Johnny had something playful to interact with. Even then, directors kept a musical act on standby in case pacing lagged. Off camera, Carson remained courteous, shaking Rogers' hand and thanking him sincerely. Yet as they parted, he whispered to a stage manager, "Book him after a stand-up, not before. Daddy needs caffeine after that." Years later, asked in private about the gentlest guest he ever hosted, Carson said, "Fred Rogers, wonderful man. But trust me, it's the only interview where I kept checking the clock and my pulse at the same time." Charlton Heston approached interviews like Senate testimonies. Carson would ask, "Chuck, ever get hurt doing those chariot scenes?" Heston leaned back, recalling childhood horse ranching, Yale Drama School, and the philosophy of risk and art. 5 minutes later, he arrived at the cracked rib anecdote, while the studio band twiddled their thumbs and Carson's head bobbed politely. At commercial breaks, Heston clarified points with off-air footnotes. He referenced Greek tragedy, quoted Plutarch, and urged Johnny to visit the NRA Museum. Carson preferred a rapid question. Punchline rally, Heston volleyed treatises. After a 1987 episode, producers counted 9 audience laugh bursts, down from a usual 30. Carson's crew experimented. They placed comic Don Rickles after Heston to revive energy. Rickles entered, saw the serious mood, and joked, "Who died? Oh, it was the audience." The crowd erupted. Backstage, Carson thanked Rickles and whispered, "Always follow Moses with mayhem." Heston remained welcome on the show, but under strict time limits. 8 minutes, no political rants, 1 epic story max. Don Rickles believed in comedic demolition. Insult so fast no one could build a defense. He greeted Carson's audience with, "Look at you, 30 million people watching a hockey puck." Carson played the straight man until Rickles crossed from playful to disrespectful. In 1976, Rickles guest hosted and accidentally broke Carson's cherished wooden cigarette box. When Carson returned the next night, he discovered the damage live on air, halted the broadcast, and marched to the adjacent set where Rickles was filming CPO Sharkey. Cameras followed as Carson confronted him. "You broke my box." Rickles cowed theatrically. America howled. But off camera, Carson noted Rickles ignored time cues, overshadowed other guests, and occasionally roasted topics NBC censors flagged. After a 1985 appearance where Rickles mocked an audience member's weight, complaints poured in. Carson imposed new guardrails, pre-interview limits, set destruction kept minimal, family jokes PG. Rickles complied barely because he cherished their friendship, but segments still left Carson sweating. Stagehands joked they needed Rickles once a sweeps period, never twice. 8 disruptors, 8 flavors of tension, Bob Hope's gags, Joan Rivers' betrayal, Wayne Newton's intimidation, Fred Rogers' earnest stillness, Charlton Heston's epic speeches, Chevy Chase's arrogance, Frank Sinatra's power plays, Don Rickles' cyclone of insults, all chipped at Carson's composure, yet he rarely let viewers see the cracks. Watching those episodes now, you'll find tiny tells, a tightened grip on a pencil, a faster sip from the coffee mug, a slightly forced laugh that lasts a beat too long. That's a hidden craft of hosting. Turning irritation into entertainment, betrayal into ratings, dread into an even sharper punchline. The next time you cue up a classic Tonight Show clip, pay attention to the spaces between laughs. You'll glimpse a master juggler keeping flaming torches aloft while smiling for 30 million people, and silently praying the next torch isn't a card king, a furious crooner, or an insult comic with a hammer.